Welcome to the Engineer Podcast. This is your podcast host, Jen, and today's episode is actually about me. I'm going to be telling my STEM story with this new season 2 of Engineer Podcast. Every first Friday of the month, we're going to be telling a STEM story, and January happens to be mine. It is my birthday month. It is the start of this new 2020 decade, and it's the start of our season 2. So why not introduce myself to the beautiful STEM students that I have listening? And today's episode is really my Gen journey towards becoming that soulful STEM student that will lead you guys into the soulful semester that I know you've been seeking for a while. I will admit that it's a little bit weird for me to talk about myself, a little bit unnatural, but I have a lot to tell you that I really want to speak about. So my boyfriend, Dean, is here, and he's going to help me answer some questions. He's going to kind of do this for me interview style, just so that it's more organic and authentic for me to answer these questions rather than force myself to kind of say my story without a reference. So I'm just gonna let Dean hand this over so that I can explain my STEM story to you.
Let's go back to the beginning. When do you think you first got involved with STEM? Science, technology, engineering, mathematics.
Yeah. So for me, this actually goes all the way back to 7th grade. So how old are you in 7th grade?
13.
12? 13, something like that. Also, guys, you should know that we are recording this from Arizona. You probably just heard the air conditioning go on and off. You're gonna hear all of that because this mic is super top quality and it captures everything. Shout out to my Uncle Rod for giving me this amazing mic. But okay, anyway, so my origin STEM story. It actually goes back to middle school. I was in 7th grade, 6th grade actually, and I was eligible to switch into 8th grade math. So I would be skipping pre-algebra and enter algebra 1 as a 7th grader. And when I was given that opportunity, I originally shied away from it because it terrified me to skip a whole year of math, and I declined that opportunity. And then my math teacher, if you're out there, Mrs. Bond, I remember you so clearly. I wonder if you still remember me. She pulled me aside and was like, Jen, if any 6th grader deserves to skip into 8th grade math, it's you, and I'm not going to let you hold yourself back. And she called my parents during class to ask them for permission to switch their signature to the yes instead of the no. So I did that. And on that first day of 7th grade, when I entered into that class, after having to teach myself pre-algebra over the summer, which was horrible, I'm not even going to talk about that. My counselor at John Adams, her name is Miss Check, she came in and told us and taught us about engineering. And she said that us students who are so smart to have skipped 7th grade math, we should consider going into engineering because being at a science magnet school, science and math equal engineering. So she was the first one to explain that career field to us. And she actually took me and a few other students, only a handful of us, to an engineering workshop. And because that was the first time that I felt really special, I just told myself from that day forward, I'm going to make sure I become an engineer. I didn't even fully grasp what it was, but at that workshop, I understood that it had to do with math and calculations and creativity and just having been that stellar student that I was in middle school. That's how it started, and I started to connect my smarts to my worth and that equaling how special I was. And so I dedicated myself to becoming an engineer one day at the age of 13.
Okay, wow. Do you think that affected the way you performed in school in high school?
100%.
Okay, how so? Like, what kind of choices did you make based off this early decision?
Yeah, so, okay, like I said, I was at a science magnet school, 7th grade, I was in Algebra 1. So then in 8th grade, I took geometry, and then 9th grade, I did Algebra 2. And then in 10th grade, another opportunity came up for me to skip ahead. And instead of doing pre-calculus / trigonometry, I did pre-calculus / calculus 1. So I did pre-calculus my first semester of 10th grade and then calculus 1 my second semester of 10th grade. So now I'm like a year and a half, 2 years ahead in math by 10th grade. Then in 11th grade, I did calculus 2, and in 12th grade, this was the second year that my high school offered this. They offered teaching us calculus 3 the first semester of high school of senior year, and then linear algebra the second semester. And I pushed myself to do all of those. In high school, because I had this goal that I had set at 13 to become an engineer, and knowing that I'm a first generation Latina going into a STEM field, I knew that I had to work my ass off to get into that field. So all of my high school, I had the mindset and the frame of perspective of having to grind and become the stellar student that universities are going to want, because that's the only way that I could become the engineer that I set to be at 13. So I was the definition of extracurricular queen star stellar student. I made that my sole purpose, and I just dove straight into school. That is what gave me my worth. That's what gave me my value. I connected, like I said, at 13, that being smart is what made me special. So I did orchestra, I did basketball, I started my own clubs in high school. Like, everything I did was on the superficial surface level of just looking like the resume builder that colleges wanted me to be. And
how did that work out?
Thanks for asking that. So imagine working 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade. That's 6 years of working my ass off to get into that university that I know I need to get into to become that engineer. And I was actually denied by 8 out of the 9 universities that I applied to. And nobody in their right mind, no matter how many times I called and begged to understand why, could explain why I was denied, because I had a 4.5 GPA that was weighted because I took so many AP classes in high school. I was like halfway done with a freshman year of college by the time I graduated high school. I also, with that 4.5 GPA, my counselors and my professors really fed into my ego all of those years. I didn't just feel special out of nowhere. People made me feel special because of my accomplishments. My professors were constantly complimenting me and how amazing my essays were, my performance on my exams. They really fed into this whole idea that my academic accomplishments equal how valuable I am. But basically, you said, how did that work out? It ended up with me with my heart completely broken because I had learned that my value was connected to this and connected to the universities that accepted me. But when I was denied by 8 out of 9 of them, I was completely crushed.
So where did you end up going then?
Yeah, so about that. I did get into one university, USC's Viterbi School of Engineering. So that's a top tier school, but it was incredibly expensive. My sister was enrolled at UCLA and my parents in no way, shape, or form were going to pay full tuition at USC plus UCLA for like 2 years overlap. And my sister went to community college before going to UCLA, and had I not had that example in my life of someone going to community college and transferring to a university, never in a million years would I had taken myself down that route. But because she was that example, I did end up going to community college, but I went very regretfully because I did not ever think that that was going to be my story. Because in high school, being that top tier student, and the professors and the college counselors telling me how amazing I am, community college was never in my conversations with any of them. And in fact, many people spoke about community college like it was a punishment, like it was a place that you didn't want to end up going to. They really fed into the social stigmas around community college, and that's something that really bothers me because they were so fucking wrong. Community college was the best thing that ever happened to me. It really humbled me to recognize that education is not a privilege like I felt it was. I really had a big head in high school that people fed into, and going to community college was what helped me realize that school is an opportunity to be so grateful for. And I really started looking at education so differently. Instead of something that I deserved, it was something that I really had to prize and take with such gratitude to appreciate. But I will say, because my identity was really questioned around this time, I still kind of did correlate my value to being my school accomplishments. I now had this fear of being enough. In high school, that wasn't the case. In high school, I thought I was the shit. I thought that with that 4.5 GPA, with being a first generation Latina going into STEM, that anybody would want me. I was told that I would get so many scholarships and full rides and opportunities. And I really believed that, like I said, that I really thought I was the fucking shit, okay? But now in community college, that's completely turned 180. I don't feel like I'm enough, but I also don't know how to not try hard in school. And I still kept grinding because now at this point I had to reprove myself all over again to these universities in 2 years. Well, really you get 1 year because then you apply, and then that second year you wait for them to get back to you. So I had 1 year to beef up my GPA, do all these things, and reapply to community college, which now I was working from a space of fear rather than confidence like I was beforehand.
So would you say you cemented the idea of going to the STEM field in community college?
So, no, this was when everything kind of started to be questioned in my life. One, I started to really question if STEM was even, or specifically engineering, was what I wanted to do. I really felt like the opportunity was taken from me. Like maybe this was a sign, maybe I'm doing the wrong thing. I also didn't like the person that I was, the student that I was studying this major. I was so invested in proving my worth in this STEM industry that I really neglected other areas of my life. And I was absolutely, in my opinion, like a shell of the person that I should be, just at the sake of raising my definition of success as a student. And all those years of grinding that hard and then getting that result really made me question my direction and if this is what I wanted to do. But again, because I chose this at 13, I had a huge identity crisis. I was like, wait, if I don't do engineering, who would I be? Where would I even go? I never explored anything else. At 13, I chose this as my direction. And if this is no longer my direction, what the fuck do I do? And who the fuck am I? Like, I had such a crisis of my identity. And then on top of it, now I don't even feel worthy of anything. It was a huge spiraling rock bottom to realize that, or at the time, feel like I had no value, and then feel like the direction that I was going was completely unaligned. But I was too afraid to let it go because it had been a part of me for so long. I wouldn't even recognize myself without it.
What would you say was the catalyst for discovering that you lost so many aspects of your life and focusing on this?
So, you know the answer to this, babe.
I do, but your viewers don't.
I know they don't. The biggest thing that was the mirror in my life to show me who I was your and my breakup. Like I said, because my worth was tested, I was completely desperate to show my value to these universities, because even though I was starting to change my view of my worth, I was still very much connected to my value coming from universities, academic accomplishments. That's all I had known, even though it was kind of starting to shift. And like I said, I was coming from a place of being desperate to show that value or seek that validation. And I, again, dove into school being the center of everything. And I joined extracurriculars on campus. I got a job as an SI leader where I would tutor and host workshops and basically teach and help other students in calculus. And that was all I ever focused on. All I ever focused on that year was just begging for universities to see that I would be a good transfer student. And in doing that, you broke up with me, and the thing that still rings in my ears to this day, because it held so much truth, but it was so painful to realize that truth, was you told me, Jen, the only part of your identity is being a student. You don't feed any other part of your personality, of your person at all. You were like, you're barely...
Yeah, that's not me.
We were...
Good thing this isn't a relationship podcast.
Hey, I think we could have one because we've worked through a lot together.
Yeah.
But, like I said, you were the mirror that showed me to myself. And made me realize, like, woke me up to want to change. And I really think that was the time that I was heartbroken and humbled to now stop forcing action and just start listening. That was when I kind of started going to God and prayer and recognizing that not every situation requires action. I know that in a STEM field, that's what it feels like, and that's what we're taught, especially in a masculine energy, hustle-driven industry. The only way to get results is by acting and making them happen. But that actually isn't the case. By you showing me that mirror, I started to shift my idea of success, shift my idea of myself by now listening inwards and being patient and being receptive and being guided by spirituality, by myself. And that was when the journey inwards started to happen. And I realized the strong imbalance of my personality. And that's why I keep saying on my podcast, I want to help bring in that work-life harmony that is missing from stressed STEM students. Because trust me, I know it. I know how many years, how many semesters you have gone in nonstop hustle mode. And it's not working. Working from a place of stress is not working.
But I guess that kind of brings us to university and where we're at today.
Yeah. This will actually be another episode, but I will touch on it a little bit. So when I got to that second year of community college and I'm starting to hear back from universities, all that fear of not being enough started coming back up to the surface, right? I was terrified of being rejected again, especially after working so fucking hard that I lost everything. If it didn't end up being worth it, then everything I did for all these years was for nothing. I had all these fears racing through my mind every day in January, February, and March when I was hearing back from universities. And I got into 6 out of 9 universities and then waitlisted to 2 out of 9. So that's 8 out of 9 basically accepting me, which was literally the exact opposite of what I had my first go around. But like I said, my burnout started to hit, guys. That was when I started realizing that this is unhealthy. I started realizing that my definition of myself, my definition of success, my spirituality, my relationships were not healthy. My view and perspective with my education was not healthy. I was hitting that burnout, right? And there was this one physics class that was so energetically draining. And I was struggling. This was the first time I ever really struggled in a class. And I really, really badly wanted to drop it. I had started going to therapy. This was also, like I said, guys, I was always in that hustle mode. So now I was receptive enough to go to therapy. Started going to counseling on campus. It's for free. It was included in our tuition. If you're a community college student or a university student, every community college and university has some kind of counseling center, not academic counseling, but like therapeutic health and wellness counseling that should be included in your tuition. If you feel that you're in that space that needs that kind of help, please utilize it. I wish someone would have told me that was available. I had to find out myself. Had I known before, maybe I wouldn't have reached that burnout, but I did. Anyway, I was reaching this point where I was like, okay, I can't, like, everything in my life is going wrong. I can't afford to fail this class. I'm just gonna drop it. And I went to my academic counselors to ask them if it was okay to drop it, and a lot of them told me, Jen, please don't do it because universities might revoke their acceptance if you drop this class. And there were several that did. I bit the bullet and I did it and I dropped the class, and that was the first time that I ever did something against school. Like, I've literally been telling you guys this whole time, everything I've done since 13 was for school. And this was the first time that I said, fuck this, I'm choosing myself. And when I chose myself, things actually started to align. Even though there were universities that said, hey, sorry, I know we told you that we'd accept you, but now we got to take it back because that was under the condition that you were going to complete this course and now you're not going to. Cal Poly Pomona was one of the few that said, hey, we don't mind. It's okay. We trust that you're still going to be successful here on this campus and you've done more than enough to let yourself in. We'll still accept you. And for some reason, everything just was easy with Cal Poly. And I started learning to listen for the synchronicities. I started learning to listen to the guidance. And when little signs like that came forward, that it was like with such ease and I didn't have to force anything, I was now receptive enough to recognize that and be like, okay, it sounds like Cal Poly is the place that I'm supposed to go. And then when I went and visited the campuses that still allowed me to be accepted with dropping this physics course, I went onto that campus with Cal Poly. We found parking super easily, which if any Cal Poly students know, parking is a huge ass issue. So if I found parking really easily, like that's already a sign in itself. Everything just flowed that day. I was in a flow state that day. And that again felt like a sign to me that that's where I should go, Cal Poly Pomona. And I did. And that's where I'm at right now. But I will say I still really strongly struggled with that work-life balance because I never had it since 13. I have not had a work-life balance. Now, I transferred to university. I'm away from my parents for the first time. I'm at fucking university, which is already kind of scary, you know, for me. I also had gone through something kind of traumatic 2 days before school started. That's also going to be another episode called Living with Anxiety for over 3+ years. That's going to be in March. If you resonate with that, if that's something that you struggle with, like, listen to that episode. Yeah, it was a transition and a half to be a transfer student at Cal Poly. And again, I still kind of questioned if this was the direction I wanted to go to. I kind of regretted not giving myself more time in high school to explore other areas. I regretted being so tunnel visioned for so many years. But Cal Poly really did feel like the place for me to be, and I still truly believe that. But it was all because I started listening inward. And that is the goal of my podcast for you stress STEMmies, to start having the tools to listen inward and trusting yourself, trusting the guidance that's being given to you. And that's how you're going to call in that ease, that flow state that you have not been existing in for so long. I don't even think you know how that feels, because I never did. For all those years, I felt like I had to force the action and force the result in order to get it. But I've learned there's a yin and yang. There is a masculine and a feminine. And today is a great day to be talking about this feminine energy because it's a lunar eclipse. And in symbolism, the sun is the active hustle energy, direct light. And the moon is the softer, receptive, listening, patient energy, which is reflecting light. The moon doesn't give off its own light. It reflects the light of the sun. So that's really my goal, to teach you guys and give you the tools to listen inwards to yourself and bring in that work-life balance, that work-life harmony. I like that. Into your space, and you're just going to serve your STEM degree so much better when you do that. Anyway, babe, thank you for asking me those questions. You really helped guide me through my own story.
Yeah, of course.
I'm really grateful for you being here. I'm grateful for the people listening. We kind of went on this episode in a way that I didn't plan on doing. I wanted to plan this episode a lot more, but things got really hectic. We happen to be in Arizona. If you want to understand why I'm here, please watch my Instagram stories at Engineer Podcast. I think you're gonna love what I show you on there, and you'll understand why this episode is coming to you the way that it is. But I want to leave you with something that I pulled when I started this episode. Actually, I got as a birthday gift a moon deck. It is an oracle card, not a tarot card, an oracle card deck that my aunt gave me for my birthday. And right before doing this episode, I pulled the card. Let me find it right now. I pulled the card, and let me know if this resonates with you guys. That's called Adapt. My instincts keep me adaptable in the face of any obstacle. When we are flexible and adaptable, life expands. When things unexpectedly shift course, we can either see into the realm of enchanted possibility, or we can become rigid with despair. Fox Medicine connects you to your natural ability to adapt, be flexible, and use your senses to discern and understand what is in front of you. She is a beautiful and stealth animal with sharp senses and a keen instinct. She's also a shapeshifter and can become invisible by blending in with her surroundings and swiftly moving through tricky situations. Tap into your inner fox and practice being aware and present in your environment. Whenever necessary, adapt and shapeshift with grace, and an opportunity or solution will reveal itself that may have otherwise remained hidden. I think that this was the perfect card for me to pull on this episode. I wanted to write down an entire script of what I was going to say about my story, and when it didn't turn out that way because of the way our travel ended up being here in Arizona, I kind of just wanted to cancel the whole episode, and my babe was the one who kind of told me, no, Jen, be flexible. Your story still deserves to be shared, even if it isn't the exact way that you want it to be. Just set up your space here in Arizona, here in the hotel, and I'll ask you the questions so it could just be organic. And so this is the episode. This is what ends up coming out when I'm adaptable and flexible, and instead of being rigid with despair, like it said here, I'm still going to give my story to you and hope that through the mess ups and the ums and the me forgetting what I'm going to say, that you still get the message, which is that I'm here to help you. And those pain points that you're experiencing, I want to prevent them from getting any deeper than how I experienced them myself. And I am working my ass off in the best and most receptive, guided way to bring in that soulful experience, that soulful STEM semester that we all deserve to have. I have had tastes of it that I want to share with you and bring you all the tools that I've learned, and I'm just so grateful to have this platform to share that with you. But tune in next week for our next episode on Friday. Also know that on Mondays, we are going to do Instagram Lives where we recap the previous episode and set a soulful statement for the rest of the week together. Thank you. I can't wait to see you on that. I love you guys, whoever the fuck you are, but I do. I will see you on Instagram, in my DMs, in my comment section, and please be sure to rate and review our podcast on iTunes, because if you do that, when you do that, I have actually created an 11-page guidebook that I want to share with you, but you can only get it when you give us a 5-star review on iTunes and send me a snapshot into my DMs. I've sent it to a couple of you, so those of you who have, let me know what you think of it, respond to that email. I'd love to get your feedback, and those of you who don't have it, you know what to do. I will see you in my DMs. Bye, guys.